हाँ नहीं नहीं पेन ड्राइव चाहिए yes sir
tomorrow in this case.
sure
And I'll definitely ask you to present a white paper on that also.
yes sir
Both mosaic and international studies,
sure sir
global.
yes sir sir this is the first slide then I'm going to introduce myself so then I'm going to discuss what are the things
University everything is very good. And also you attended interviews, but you are on live.
are we on yes okay hello friends welcome to RAO'S Academy for Competitive Exams. So this is a very innovative and unique course called as Gati that we are starting, which is a very quick revision kind of crash course for prelims 2023. So I'm Chiranth and I'll be covering the portion of environment, ecology, biodiversity and wildlife management. So let me introduce you about myself. So my name is Chiranth Rashekar and rest is just kind of quick introduction about me. So the only thing which you have to know about me is many of the things which we are going to discuss in this Gati crash course are going to reflect in the examination. At least that is the hope. And with that introduction, so I'll be going through a very quick overview of what are the things which we are going to study in this course. See, there are 4 major headings under this topic. So ecology, environment, biodiversity and wildlife management. And altogether from this in prelims 2022, there were around 22 questions reflected in the examination. Out of 100 questions, 22 questions came from this overall. That makes this subject a very important one. And so with that, I'll be going on with the thing. I'll be explaining you the concepts of these, what are we going to study. See, some of the portions of ecology are overlapping with environment, some of the portions of environment overlaps with biodiversity, and some of the portions of biodiversity will overlap with the wildlife management. So, but still we'll try to differentiate between these 4 topics and we'll try to study the unique topics within these headings. So in ecology, we are going to study the topics of population ecology, community ecology, then ecosystems, biomes, biosphere and subtopics within that, which has very high probability of being asked in the examination. Okay. So meanwhile, in between, I'll also be letting you answer some of the PYQs, previous year questions. In environment, majorly we'll be concentrating on the problems related to environment. It may be pollution, climate change, acid rain, or ozone depletion, deforestation, forest fires, okay, all these topics. And in biodiversity, we'll be talking about the biodiversity, its parts, its components, values, the biodiversity conservation mainly, like different biodiversity hotspots, their specifications, and other aspects of biodiversity, United Nations Conservation on Biodiversity and Biodiversity Act, and finally wildlife. So under wildlife, we'll be studying the IUCN sites and some critically endangered species, okay, all other things. So this is the overall view, broad breakup. If you look into the previous past 15-year questions, you can notice that most of the questions are within this framework. A lot of questions, all the questions are being asked within these topics. Okay, the questions might be different, but the concepts will be keep on repeating. All right, so having said this, I'll start with environment, and environment being a very important portion. Around 6 to 7 questions do come from environment every year. So within environment, I'll just give you a very quick introduction on environment. So environment basically is derived from a French word environnement, that means to surround. Everything which surrounds us is environment. Okay, so everything which is surrounding us, another it may be another biotic component or an abiotic component. So it may be natural or artificial, everything comes under environment. So the word environment means surroundings in which the organisms live. So it is defined as anything immediately surrounding an object and exerting a direct influence on it. So that is a definition given on environment by Gisbert. So this is a very quick introduction. So because this is a Gati course, I will not be going much deeper into the simpler things, very primitive things. So we'll be jumping on directly to the thing. So these are some of the questions which I want you to answer. These are some of the state prelims questions. So I have taken it from some of the state prelims, but I have included all the UPSC prelims PYQs as well. So the question says the sum total of all living and non-living things that affect any living organism is environment. These kind of questions do come from the prelims exam in state, but in mains there will be different questions. Even this can be a very potential question which has been asked in one of the state prelims, like in 2012 as well as 16, that which day is observed as environmental day. Okay, even that simple information can be reflected as a question. So the answer is 5th June. Okay, what are the components of environment? See, the components of environment can be divided into natural environment, okay, and all these comes under artificial environment. So natural environment can be, I'll write it here, it can be hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere, and all these components within which the living organisms exist, that's called biosphere. And these are the natural environments. And in artificial environments there are humans and human made structures. In humans you have individual, you have family, you have community, you have religion, education, okay, so all these things. And human made, you have roads, bridges, buildings, even those are a part of artificial environment. So these are the components of environments. So I will neither go much deeper into this. This is a question which takes us to the next topic which I am going to discuss, that which of the following is not one of the 5 basic problems of environment. So there are some basic problems of environment and there are some other problems, indirect problems of environment. So basically we will list all of them under the problems of environment. So if you look at this question, this was a state prelims question which has been asked. They are asking which of the following is not one of the basic causes of environment. They have given public policy, population growth, poverty, and unsustainable use of resources, unsustainable resource use. See, poverty, unsustainable resource use, and population growth, all the 3 are interlinked, because poverty leads to dependency on nature, which makes the persons to extract more and more of natural resources which are free of cost, and that's why there is too much of pressure on the natural resource like forests, and that leads to unsustainable resource use. And population growth, again, more mouths to feed and less production will make them dependent on natural resources. So all these 3 causes unsustainability, but public policies are always framed in order to, even if it is for a good environmental reason, the implementation might be a policy problem, but policy cannot be a problem to the environment. So the option which is not a basic cause of environment is public policy. Okay, so the option for this question is A. Now we'll discuss some of the basic problems related to environment. So out of the basic problems related to environment, we have deforestation, forest fires, ozone depletion, acid rain, climate change, pollution, and over exploitation of resources. So I'll be discussing all these topics one by one, and along with this there are some more problems which are related, but they are also the problems of environment, like we have population growth, urbanization, poverty, food insecurity, diseases, and peak oil and energy security, and conflict and displacement. Okay, because of that there will be immigration and emigration of the people, so the pressure on certain resources or land or country will increase. That again will cause problems to the environment of that region. So those are the problems. So I'll discuss these one by one. The first problem which I'll be talking about is pollution. Okay, so because from pollution a lot of questions are being asked in the prelims. Every year there will be one question. Last year there was 3 questions from pollution. 2021 there was around 4 questions from pollution. So they have been asking, and if you look at the trend, so they are mostly concentrating on the solid waste management, the e-waste management. Last year there was a question on R2 code of practices. So I'll make you answer all those questions. Okay, so while dealing those topics, but just we'll take down this pollution and discuss them one by one. Okay, so what is pollution? Basically, the pollution can be defined as an undesirable change in physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of air, water, and soil. Okay, so basically we are concentrating on 3 components of environment, which is air, which is water, and soil. And within these 3 components we are concentrating on 3 major changes. One is the physical change, chemical change, and the biological change. So physical, chemical, or biological change in the air, water, and soil, and that change will affect the life or create a potential health hazard to any living organism. So the change must not be ineffective. So it should be affecting any living organism, and the change should be in such concentration or in such level that it is causing potential health hazard to living organisms or any other organisms. Okay, so that is the thing. So another explanation for pollution is direct or indirect change in the components of biosphere that is harmful to the living components and which is undesirable for man, which affects adversely industrial progress, cultural, natural assets, and general environment. So basically they are saying it may be a direct change or an indirect change in the any component of biosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and lithosphere. Again we come to water, air, and soil. Okay, so which is harmful to living components, and for man especially it will cause adverse progress in industrial progress, adverse effect, cultural and natural assets, and general environment. Okay, so that is what is the definition of pollution. Now pollution is caused by any substance which causes pollution is caused by pollutants, and these substances which changes these physical, chemical, and biological characteristics are called as pollutants. So these are those substances which causes pollution, and this may be a chemical substance like the one which come out of the industries, factories, or it comes out of the vehicular exhaust, or it comes from the textile industry, tanning industry. So all these places. So it may be just a chemical element, or a geochemical like sediment, dust, aerosol, which we talk about PM 2.5, PM1, all these are the solid particles. It may be chemical particle or a geochemical particle, or it may be biotic component, like you have certain microorganisms which pollute the environment. Okay, so it may be certain heat coming out of thermal power plants which causes physical thermal pollution. Okay, so physical change in the water body. They are released intentionally by man into environment. Okay, so they are released in such concentration that they have adverse or unpleasant or harmful effect on the human beings. Okay, so that is what is a pollutant. So we will see the pollutants, and before going into the details of the pollutants, let us see some of the kinds of pollution. There are different kinds of pollution. As and when we are discovering more and more kinds of pollution. So we have air pollution, which is very, very important. We'll study this. We have water pollution. Okay. Then we have noise pollution and solid or land contamination, or solid pollution, land contamination, or solid waste pollution, all these things. These are the 4 major kinds of pollution, and we are going to discuss this one by one. But there are some pollutions which are like nowadays being coming or becoming very important, like we have radioactive contamination. So we also call it as radioactive pollution, which happens because of the radioactive material released from nuclear power plants or nuclear explosion, or the waste coming out of the nuclear reactors. So when they enter the water body, air or anything, it will cause too much of problem. So it will enter the soil. Through the soil, it will enter the plants. So through plants, it will enter the food chain. So it goes to the higher trophic level. From these animals, if the humans drink the milk of the animals, it can travel through the milk to the mother, and even from mother to fetus. It has a very high consistent or persistency in the environment. So there are many radioactive elements, but in India, the radioactivity, first of all, we have, we are neither signatory to non-proliferation treaty. So that's why we don't have restrictions, but still, according to India's nuclear doctrine, we have declared ourselves that we have put a moratorium on ourselves that we are not going to test any nuclear bombs, okay, nuclear weapons after 1998, okay, Pokhran 2 test of nuclear bomb. So we have put a moratorium on ourselves. India released India's nuclear doctrine in 2003. So we have declared that we will not be testing any nuclear bombs others, and will not be the first one to use the nuclear bomb. Okay, so there is a thing called India's nuclear doctrine. You will be studying that in nuclear technology, in science and technology. So and we have because we are not a signatory to NPT, okay, and we are not a member of NSC, so we are not so much advanced in the nuclear technology. Our nuclear reactors are not so world-class level, so that contamination is not that much serious, okay, in India, as serious as this one. Okay, so this is radioactive contamination. We will not go into study that separately. Then there is thermal pollution. Thermal pollution is basically, see, whenever there is a nuclear reactor or any thermal power plant, so the engines gets heated. So what people do, they will take the water from the rivers, the cold water, normal water, they will pass it through these machineries, the water get heated, and that acts as a coolant, cooling of the machines. And once they cool it, then they will pass this hot water, which has become hot, into the rivers again without treating it, and that increases the temperature of the aquatic bodies. And this increase in temperature is causing too much of problem in the fishes or any aquatic fauna and flora. It is causing problem in the food chain of the aquatic ecosystems. It's causing problem in the hatching of fish eggs. So the fish population is coming down. So many fishes cannot tolerate this slight change in the temperature. Corals are dying, okay, and so some fishes like salmon, which has a unique kind of lifespan, they will travel back from the oceans, to the rivers for breeding. Their population is coming down. So all these are because of thermal pollution. Okay. So that is actually a part of this water pollution. Okay. Then they have light pollution. Light pollution is like excessive usage of lights, usually the street lights. So they'll be using too much of lights in cities for attraction, for for glorification and many other reasons. And this is a new concept. Okay. So people who get exposed to too much of light, they'll get headache, they'll get fatigue, they'll get sleeplessness, insomnia. Okay. So their blood pressure will increase, it will lead to cardiac problems. So a lot of stress is happening. You can see some of the lights will be projecting towards the sky. So mainly again for attraction. So that light is causing problem with birds, migratory pathway of birds, because the birds follow certain circadian rhythm. Okay. So they have their biological clock, so they follow the darkness. So and they get diverted from their flyways. Just like we have highways, the birds have flyways, and these flyways get disrupted. Okay. So that is happening. And so light pollution is happening. Then visual pollution, again a new concept of pollution. Visual pollution is somewhere like it actually is again a new concept. So you'll see a lot of wires entangled, and so much of jumbled-ness, a lot of solid waste dumped on the roadside. So if you see that, you'll psychologically get affected. Some people get really disturbed by seeing this very dirty environment, uncleanliness, or dumping of these huge dump or bundle of wastes, solid waste, medical waste, biomedical wastes. So all this is called visual pollution. Anything which is not clear will disturb certain set of people. So again, this is also a concept which has been in news sometimes, and a new concept. There is one more kind of pollution which is called as space pollution. What is space pollution? See, according to the studies, whenever a satellite is launched, so it will have a lifespan of around 15 to 20 years, and after that it will be either burnt by bringing back into the atmosphere, and the remaining fuel is used to push it back to certain space graveyard. Okay, it's called space graveyard, where all the satellites are pushed away from the either GEO, geosynchronous or geostationary satellites, or even from lower Earth orbits, middle Earth orbits, sun synchronous orbits. Okay, various kinds of orbits are there. So from there it will be pushed away into the space. So that has been happening since many years, since the first satellite which was launched, which was Soviet Sputnik 1 project. That is the first satellite which went from artificial satellite which went from Earth to the space. So now we have 300 operational satellites, more than 3,000 operational satellites, okay, and more than 8,000 junks floating in the space, which is causing space pollution. Okay, so that is also kind of new concept called as space pollution. We are polluting the space from all these debris from broken satellites, debris from the launch vehicles, so expired satellites and all these things. Okay, these are certain kinds of pollutions. Okay, all right. So we'll start with the first kind of pollution, which is air pollution. Okay, see, air pollution is simply, if you want to say, it is the accumulation of hazardous substances into the atmosphere that endanger the human life and other living matter. So this is the simplest definition. अगर ये definition आपको नहीं आया तो आप क्या करोगे? Any change in physical, chemical or biological property of air. That's it. Simple. Okay. So that is the simplest way of putting it. If you could remember this accumulation of hazardous substance into the atmosphere that endanger the human life and other living matter. Nahi to, that is a simple thing. Okay. So air pollution It will come both from natural and man-made sources. Naturally बहुत सारा एयर पोल्यूशन होता है, मैन भी बहुत सारा एयर पोल्यूशन कॉज करता है, राइट. सो नेचुरल एयर पोल्यूटेंट्स जो है, जो बहुत ही सालों से होते आ रहा है, इट्स बीन हैपनिंग सिंस मिलियंस ऑफ ईयर्स एंड इट्स नॉट डिस्टर्बिंग द इक्विलिब्रियम, that is bearable. But the pollution happening from man is more dangerous. It is happening at an accelerated manner, बहुत ही तेजी से बढ़ रहा है. So though globally man-made pollutants from combustion, construction, mining, agriculture and warfare are increasingly significant in the air pollution equation. Man का contribution बहुत ही ज़्यादा है because of all these reasons which man are doing, which is resulting in air pollution. Okay. So that is simple. There will be changes in the physical, chemical and biological properties of air. अभी यूपीएससी में कैसे क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता है? Okay, so this is a question asked in UPSC 2019 prelims. So try answering this question. I'll just give you couple of seconds. Okay, consider the following: carbon monoxide, methane, ozone, sulfur dioxide. Which of the above are released into atmosphere due to burning of crop or biomass residue? ये क्वेश्चन आपको करंट अफेयर्स भी लगेगा, क्योंकि क्रॉप बर्निंग और बायोमास बर्निंग जो है ये हमेशा न्यूज़ में रहता है. व्हेनेवर द क्रॉप सीजन कंप्लीट्स इन हरियाणा एंड पंजाब, तो उसको वो लोग बर्न करते हैं, बिकॉज उसको निकालने के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे लगता है. सो वो जो बर्न किया हुआ स्मोक है वो आके दिल्ली में इट विल get down and that will cause too much of pollution in Delhi. And इसको लेके बहुत interstate dispute हुआ था and a lot of things were in news. उसको भी हो सकता है. Otherwise, if you do not consider it as a current affairs, this is very much a question of environment static portion. क्या पढ़ लो कौन कौन सा pollutants है और उसका क्या क्या sources है, आपको पता चल जाएगा कि कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड, बिकॉज यू आर आफ्टर दिस वी आर गोइंग टू स्टडी ईच एंड एवरी पोल्यूटेंट्स और उसका सोर्सेस, उसका इफेक्ट्स. उसमें आपको याद रहेगा कि कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड में क्या हमने पढ़ा था कि क्रॉप बर्निंग इज अ सोर्स और नॉट. क्या मीथेन में हमने पढ़ा था कि ये क्रॉप बर्निंग से होता है कि नहीं. ओके, सो दैट इज द थिंग. सी बाय व्हेन यू बर्न द बायोमास, क्रॉप बायोमास, मेनी केमिकल्स आर प्रोड्यूस्ड. You get carbon dioxide, you get carbon monoxide, you get sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide. Okay, so many other toxic chemicals, but definitely not methane. Methane जो है ये produce होता है whenever there is anaerobic decomposition. जो ऑक्सीजन के बिना decomposition होता है तब आपको मीथेन प्रोडक्शन होता है. Can you give some examples? राइस फील्ड में जब सबमर्ज कंडीशन में ऑर्गेनिक मैटर डिकम्पोजिशन होता रहता है, वो बहुत ज़्यादा मीथेन प्रोड्यूस करता है. वेटलैंड्स जहाँ ऑक्सीजन नहीं रहता है, पूरा का पूरा पानी भरा रहता है, उसमें अनेरोबिक कंडीशन होता है, वो मीथेन प्रोडक्शन करता है. काउस में 4 स्टोमक होता है. ओके, इट हैज़ 4 स्टोमक्स. वन ऑफ द स्टोमक इज रुमन, फर्स्ट स्टोमक. रुमन में जो सेल्यूलोज वो खाता है, that cellulose will be broken down to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen, okay, CO2 and H. And there are certain bacteria called archaea. ये जो bacteria है ये carbon dioxide और H के ऊपर act करके they will start producing methane. And that's the reason why cows, buffaloes or bovine animals, okay, sheep, cows, buffaloes, ये सब burping करता है. burp क्या बोलते हैं, डकार. ओके, सो डकार लेके डकार से वो मीथेन प्रोड्यूस करता है. ओके, सो बोथ फ्रॉम बैक एंड फ्रंट दे विल कीप ऑन प्रोड्यूसिंग मीथेन ऑल थ्रू द ईयर. इट इज एस्टिमेटेड दैट हर दिन में एक काउ, एक कैटल 200 लीटर मीथेन प्रोड्यूस करता है. इट प्रोड्यूसेस अराउंड 200 लीटर्स ऑफ मीथेन. ओके, and a young calf produces around 75 to 85 liters of methane, and a sheep or goat produces around 25 to 30 liters of methane. Okay, so that's the reason why recently there is a topic which is in news which can be very important for your examination, which is called as हरित धारा. आप इसको पढ़ लो, go back and search for it. So this is a very important topic for prelims. इस बार current affairs news में था. ये biotechnology, using biotechnology, scientists have produced certain GM foods, genetically modified food. उसको खिलाने से जो मीथेन प्रोडक्शन है वो बहुत कट ऑफ हो जाएगा. It will come down. That's a kind of food for cattle which will bring down the methane emission from cattle. Okay, so that is what is the Harit Dhara, food, GM food for cattle, and इससे weight भी बढ़ेगा, milk production increase होगा, बहुत सारा benefits है. Okay, so methane is not a option. And उसके बाद ओजोन जो है, देखो पोल्यूटेंट्स में दो तरह का पोल्यूटेंट होता है. एक होता है प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट, दूसरा होता है सेकेंडरी पोल्यूटेंट. प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट जो है उसका कुछ सोर्सेस होता है, जहां से आ रहा है. क्या व्हीकल से आ रहा है तो हमें पता है कि ये व्हीकल से आ रहा है. फैक्ट्रीज की चिमनी से आ रहा है तो पता है कि इसको फैक्ट्री से चिमनी से आ रहा है, या वुड बर्निंग से आ रहा है, वुड बर्निंग से आ रहा है. सो वी हैव अ सोर्स. जिसका सोर्स होता है उसको हम लोग प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट्स बोलते हैं. जो प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट्स बाद में when they react with ozone or water or anything, and they produce some other pollutants called as secondary pollutant. Okay, जिसका कोई सोर्स नहीं होता, जो बनता है प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट से. ओके, सो ओजोन इज अ सेकेंडरी पोल्यूटेंट जो बनता है नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, ओके, एंड वोलेटाइल ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड्स जब रिएक्ट करता है अल्ट्रावायलेट रेस के बाद, तब ओजोन क्रिएशन होता है. ओजोन डजंट हैव अ सोर्स, इट इज अ सेकेंडरी पोल्यूटेंट. सो क्रॉप बर्निंग से ये भी नहीं आ सकता. सो द आंसर इज 1 and 4 ओनली. इस क्वेश्चन से हमें ये भी पता चलता है कि हमको हर एक सोर्सेस पता होना चाहिए और उसका हर एक पोल्यूटेंट्स पता होना चाहिए और उसका सोर्सेस पता होना चाहिए. ओके, ऑल राइट. नाउ लेट अस डिस्कस सम ऑफ द प्राइमरी पोल्यूटेंट्स एक के बाद एक. सो वन बाय वन विल डिस्कस दिस. First and foremost, we are talking about sulfur dioxide. Okay, sulfur dioxide is a very toxic gas which is pungent, which is has a very irritating smell. So cannot bear the pollution of sulfur dioxide. Feel very irritated. Okay, so sulfur has different sources. So it is produced by burning of fossil fuels like coal in thermal power plant. Coal produces, when the coal is burnt, it produces a lot of sulfur. So it is produced by the processing of sulfide ores like pyrite, sperlite, cinnabar and others. It is produced from the oceans. Okay, so I think we have this slide. Oh yes, we have certain more sources. Okay, yeah. So you have industrial manufacturing of sulfuric acid and sulfur fertilizers, burning of crop moss and residues. Okay, so stacks of industries. Okay, so industrial uses, automobile exhaust, combustion engines, petroleum refineries, all these industries, factories which uses fossil fuels, which uses coal, which uses petrol, diesel or any other burning material, that will be releasing sulfur dioxide. इसके अलावा हमारा natural sources भी है sulfur dioxide में. Sulfur dioxide is also produced from volcanoes. Okay, it is also produced by forest fires. It is also produced by oceans. Oceans से किस फॉर्म में sulfur dioxide produce होता है? It is produced in the form of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, जो प्रोड्यूस करता है phytoplanktons. See, we study the same phenomena in ocean acidification, क्योंकि ocean acidification में एक क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था कि ओशन एसिडिफिकेशन में क्या क्या हो रहा है, कोरल ब्लीचिंग हो रहा है, फिशेस मर रहा है, फिशेस का पॉपुलेशन कम हो रहा है, और उसके साथ एक था कि ओशन एसिडिफिकेशन से क्या क्लाउड फॉर्मेशन, क्लाउड सीडिंग इफेक्ट हो रहा है. ओके, क्लाउड सीडिंग कम हो रहा है, क्लाउड फॉर्मेशन कम हो रहा है. सो द आंसर इज यस, क्योंकि ओशन एसिडिफिकेशन से बहुत सारा फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स मर रहा है. फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स आर दोज प्लांट्स व्हिच लिव इन वाटर एंड डू फोटोसिंथेसिस. ओके, दे फॉर्म अ प्राइमरी फूड चेन प्रोड्यूसर्स. तो वो जो फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स है, these phytoplanktons will die because of ocean acidification. और ये जो phytoplanktons है, they release dimethyl sulfide and they escape into the atmosphere. Yeah. No. So acidification mainly basically is change in the pH of the water body. That's it. It doesn't do anything with that. It's mainly to do with carbon dioxide converting into carbonic acid. Carbonic acid will start, in turn produces the carbonium ions and bicarbonium ions. Okay, carbonates and bicarbonates form करेगा. इससे जो H plus का ions का concentration बढ़ेगा, जिससे ocean का pH कम होगा. Quantity of water has nothing to do with the ocean acidification. इससे क्या हो रहा है, fishes मर रहा है, because in water pH has kind of exponential effect. मतलब थोड़ा कम होने से बहुत ज्यादा इफेक्ट है, थोड़ा थोड़ा कम होते रहे, it keeps on exponentially increasing the effect. Okay, so that is the reason why lot of plants are dying. वो जो plants मरने से डाइमिथाइल सल्फाइड बाहर जाने के लिए पॉसिबल नहीं है, that will be reduced. So ये जो डाइमिथाइल सल्फाइड है, ये एटमॉस्फेयर में जाने के बाद it will get converted into sulfuric acid and it will get associated with the aerosols and it will help in the seeding of clouds formation. Clouds होगा तो ही वो सनलाइट को रिफ्लेक्ट करके अर्थ का टेम्परेचर को कूल रखेगा. Because of ocean acidification, less phytoplanktons, less dimethyl sulfide, less formation of clouds, and it is increasing the temperature of globe. That's like kind of thing. There is a wonderful question which you can answer, that global warming is a twin evil of ocean acidification, or ocean acidification is a twin evil of global warming. Okay, कैसे, मतलब ocean acidification से global warming कैसा होगा? This is the link, this is the pathway. Okay, so वो है, and इससे भी ocean से भी produce होगा and decomposition से भी होगा. Okay, decomposition of organic matter. Okay, so excreta of animals, all these produces, these are the natural sources of sulfur. Okay, all right, so we know the sources of sulfur. Now we look into the effect of sulfur dioxide, why it is a pollutant and what are the different effects it causes. First and foremost effect which it causes is acid rain. Sulfur, okay, mainly the form of SO3 will react with water to form H2SO4. Okay, so this acid rain will cause reduction in pH of water bodies. It will harm the tissues of plants and animals. It will cause food poisoning. It will damages the buildings like Taj Mahal. Okay, so it will corrode the metals and it will reduce the shelf life of many things. So all these are the reasons. Acid rain, it produces something called as acute leaf injury. Acute leaf injury जो है, so ये है. Okay, so this is how the plants look like. अगर SO2 pollution से damage हुआ है तो ये एक इंडिकेशन है. उसके लीफ के ऊपर वाइट ब्लॉचेस आएगा, बहुत सारा वाइट ब्लॉचेस होगा, जिससे पता चलता है कि ये जो प्लांट है ये सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड पोल्यूशन से अफेक्टेड है. ओके, सो दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ लॉस ऑफ क्लोरोफिल जो पिगमेंट्स है वो डैमेज हो जाता है सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड से, इसलिए वो एक्यूट लीफ इंजुरी होता है. नाउ नेक्रोसिस, नेक्रोसिस इज डेथ ऑफ सेल्स. जो प्लांट्स का लीफ सेल्स है वो सेल्स डेथ होगा तो मर जाएगा. यू नो द डेथ ऑफ दिस सेल्स कॉजिंग ब्राउनिश कलरेशन ऑफ द लीव्स कॉल्ड एज नेक्रोसिस. ओके, नेक्रोसिस को हम इसको नेक्रोसिस बोलते हैं जो सेल्स डाई होता है. देन ब्राउनिश कलरेशन ऑफ पाइन नीडल्स. पाइन जो है, पाइनस रॉक्सबर्गी और एनी अदर कॉनिफर जो पाइन छोड़ता है वो ब्राउनिश हो जाता है. ग्रीन कलर रहता है नॉर्मली, बट पोल्यूशन की वजह से ब्राउन कलर हो जाता है. ओके, एंड लाइकन वेजिटेशन इज अफेक्टेड. लाइकन्स जो है इट इज अ सिम्बायोटिक एसोसिएशन बिटवीन algae एंड फंगाई. ये भी एक क्वेश्चन था. algae और फंगाई, यू नो लाइकन इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ algae एंड फंगाई, बैक्टीरिया एंड फंगाई. बहुत सारे ऑप्शंस पूछे थे यूपीएससी में. सो algae एंड फंगाई combinedly form lichens. So जो lichens है इसका population effect होगा. अच्छा, now what are the kind of questions? इससे क्या क्वेश्चन बन सकता है? Which of the following are the effects of sulfur dioxide pollution? Okay, or the air pollution because of sulfur dioxide. They'll give 4 options. Lichen population affected. You know, the acute leaf injury is caused. Okay, then necrosis in plants is caused. So आपको choose करना पड़ेगा कि which of the following is right. 1, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. So you should know these are the impacts or effects of sulfur dioxide. Okay. So इसी तरह हम लोग हर एक pollutants के साथ करना चाहिए. Okay. So next is nitrous oxide, the second kind of pollutant. Okay, and you know nitrous oxides. So it can be in the form of NOx. Okay. So NO2, N2O. Okay. So many other forms. So that's why we call it as collectively nitrous oxides. Okay. So nitrous oxides, like nitrogen oxides, are produced from vehicular exhaust when petrol, diesel, natural gas is burnt, combustion in the air, okay, factory stacks, okay, whatever the factory outlets or chimneys give out nitrous oxide. Then combustion of oxygen, nitrogen during lightning, the discharges bacterial oxidation of ammonia in soil, industrial manufacturing of nitric acid. So these are some of the sources of nitric oxide, and these are the sources of nitrogen dioxide. Okay. So along with that, even some of the other sources are forest fires, जो natural है. Okay. So volcanoes, crop or stubble burning, okay. So all these things, right? So these are some of the sources. उसका effects देखते हैं. Again, nitrous oxides also causes acid rain. Just like sulfur dioxide, it also causes acid rain. It creates photochemical smog. एक concept है photochemical smog. So it's also called as, what is it called? Los Angeles smog. ये जो smog है, it was first time noticed in Los Angeles. So this is because of the primary pollutants like nitrous oxides or volatile organic compounds. When they combine with ultraviolet rays, they produce secondary pollutants like ozone and per-acetyl nitrate. PAN और ओजोन जो है ये secondary pollutants है. जब ये primary pollutants, secondary pollutants sunlight में bake होता है तो it will produce a fog or a smoke. When combined with fog, it forms a smog, and because it is happening in sunlight, it's called as photochemical smog. Okay, so photochemical smog बहुत ही dangerous है. ये दिन के time में होता है, so sunlight का जरूरत है, and that is caused by nitric oxide. Okay, it also causes bleaching and bronzing of plants. Plants में bleaching होगा, पूरा जो पत्ता है वो सफेद कलर का हो जाएगा, ब्रॉन्ज कलर का हो जाएगा. Okay, so this is what is the result, right? So this is the effects of things. See here, these are the primary pollutants, these are secondary pollutants. When both are combined, they form photochemical smog. Okay, this is the photochemical smog. All right. So that is the effect. Okay. So this is the before going into the next pollution. So this was a question from UPSC prelims 2014. So इसको answer करो आप. Okay, which of the following adds carbon dioxide to carbon cycle of the planet Earth? Okay, so volcanic action do add carbon dioxide. Respiration, we take in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis is exactly opposite to respiration, where carbon dioxide is taken in and oxygen is left out. So this will not add carbon dioxide, but it will remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. We call it as carbon sequestration. या वो oceanic होगा या plant से होगा. Okay, there are many things. When it happens by plants through photosynthesis, so that is the removal of carbon dioxide from the the atmosphere. Okay, so 3 is not an option. Decay of organic matter, yes, will also add carbon. Okay, so the answer is 1, 2 and 4 only. 3 is not the option. Okay, so that's it. Little bit of common sense, little bit of basic knowledge, you can solve the every question in UPSC. Okay, so this is how they are testing. Okay, now we'll go to the next thing, carbon dioxide. Okay, so carbon dioxide, what are the sources? Burning of fossil fuels like coal for cooking, heating, for various purposes. We use coal for domestic purpose. Fuel consumed in furnaces and industries. Okay, so mainly the fossil fuels. पता है ना fossil fuels कैसे बनता है? Lot of organic matter which escape the decomposition, वो millions of millions years they will be under the rock or soil particles, they will get converted into fossil fuels. Okay, basically they are the carbon sources, right? Thermal power plants. Okay, so around 50 to 60% of the thermal power plants, or at least 50% of the thermal power plants all over the globe, they follow similar methodology of burning coal. When the coal is burned, the water is heated, and this water is converted into steam. That steam is let to pass through the turbine. The turbine rotates, electricity is produced. This is even today it is one of the most common method of electricity production in India as well as many other countries. And it's going to be the same method. We are not going to stop coal production, at least for very near future, because we don't have better alternative, economical alternative. Okay, so yes, that is the thing. Burning of crop biomass or residues. Okay, so those are the sources. Before going, we will also note down some of the natural sources as well. Okay, volcanoes, forest fires, decomposition of organic matter, then excretion of animals, vehicular exhaust, ये सब सोर्सेस है कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का. ओके, सो कार्बन ऑफ कोर्स इज अ पोल्यूटेंट, पर मोर देन अ पोल्यूटेंट, कार्बन इज अ ग्रीन हाउस गैस. Okay, it is not as serious pollutant as others, especially in harming the human health. Okay. Okay. What are the effects? Effects of carbon dioxide. We have greenhouse effect, which is good. Okay, greenhouse effect. Earth का average temperature को maintain कर रहा है. So we have global warming. Okay, which is bad. क्योंकि एवरेज ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर जो है वो बढ़ते जा रहा है, जिसकी वजह से क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है. ओके, जिसकी वजह से कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड की वजह से ओशन एसिडिफिकेशन इज हैपनिंग. ओके, सो लॉट ऑफ एक्वेटिक प्लांट्स, एनिमल्स आर डाइंग. इट इज अ एस्पिरेंट गैस. ओके, दैट मीन्स, सो एस्पिरेंट गैस का मतलब है कि इट कॉजेस द डिप्रिवेशन ऑफ ऑक्सीजन. आप सब ने महसूस किया होगा लॉकडाउन के टाइम पे व्हेन सडनली वी वर आस्क्ड टू वेयर मास्क्स. सो हम लोग कुछ लोग N95 ठीक ठाक मास्क, सर्जिकल मास्क यूज करते थे. कुछ लोग कपड़ों का मास्क, हैंकरचीफ, पता नहीं कपड़ा, रुमाल, चादर, कुछ भी ओढ़ने लगे. दे स्टार्टेड वेयरिंग एवरीथिंग. So because they just know that they want to cover their faces. Even the masks were getting सब पान शॉप में मिल रहा था. Masks, they were made up of thick cloth. उसमें ठीक से सांसें भी नहीं ले पाते. So what we are doing, we are inhaling, exhaling within the mask. तो हम लोग कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड छोड़ रहे थे, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड को ही इनहेल कर रहे थे. लॉट ऑफ पीपल गॉट डिजीनेस, हेडेक, इम्यूनिटी कम हो गया. आपको भी हुआ होगा स्टार्टिंग में व्हेन यू स्टार्टेड यूजिंग मास्क इनिशियली. लॉट ऑफ डिजीनेस, लॉट ऑफ हेडेक, बिकॉज यू आर इनहेलिंग द कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, नॉट ऑक्सीजन. ऑक्सीजन आने के लिए वह जगह ही नहीं था मास्क के थ्रू. ओके, सो ऑक्सीजन होगा, डिजीनेस होगा, हेडेक होगा, अनकॉन्शियस समटाइम्स. ओके, सो व्हेन यू डायरेक्टली इनहेल द कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. इसलिए क्या होता था, व्हेनेवर पीपल हु गो इन द डीप माइंस, जहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन का कमी होता था, तो दे यूज्ड टू सफर विद दिस काइंड ऑफ सिम्टम्स. इसलिए उनको बाहर लेके आने के बाद तुरंत ऑक्सीजन देते थे. ओके, दे यूज्ड टू गिव हाइपरबरिक ऑक्सीजन थेरेपी, के HBOT बोलता है. सो वी विल बी रिड्यूसिंग द एटमॉस्फेरिक टेम्परेचर एंड गिविंग ऑक्सीजन, जिसके थ्रू वो पूरे हर एक जगह पे ऑक्सीजन पहुंचे. सो लॉट ऑफ पीपल वर्किंग इन मेट्रो, दिल्ली मेट्रो और एनी अदर मेट्रो, दे हैव टू गो डीप इनसाइड. सो उनको ये सब सिम्टम्स होता था बिकॉज ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. All right. So there is something called as carbon footprint. Okay, इसे एक क्वेश्चन आया. कार्बन फुटप्रिंट का मतलब है कि द अमाउंट ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड रिलीज्ड इनटू एटमॉस्फेयर बाय ए पर्टिकुलर ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी. एक ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी से कितना कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है, उसको हम कार्बन फुटप्रिंट बोलते हैं. ओके, सी इफ यू लुक एट दिस, सबसे ज्यादा ह्यूमन जो सोर्सेस है उसमें है फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, और उसके बाद इंडस्ट्रीज और लैंड यूज, डिफॉरेस्टेशन वगैरह वगैरह. सो अगर आपको दिया गया, इसमें क्वेश्चन कैसे पूछ सकते हैं, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग, अरेंज द फॉलोइंग कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और द सोर्सेस ऑफ कार्बन फुटप्रिंट इन द डिक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर. वो लोग दिए फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, लैंड यूज और इंडस्ट्रीज. आपको अरेंज करना है. सबसे ज्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन किससे है, फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, उसके बाद इंडस्ट्रीज, उसके बाद लैंड यूज. वो तो ठीक है, वो आराम से याद कर सकते हैं. बट विद इन फॉसिल फ्यूल्स कौन कौन सा इंडस्ट्रीज है, दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. इसका क्वेश्चन ऐसा आ सकता है कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज प्रोड्यूसिंग हाईएस्ट कार्बन फुटप्रिंट. आपको दे सकता है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, रेसिडेंशियल, इंडस्ट्रीज, ट्रांसपोर्ट. आपको पता होना है कि कौन सा जो सेक्टर है सबसे ज्यादा कार्बन फुटप्रिंट का, सबसे ज्यादा कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड एमिशन कर रहा है. सो हम लोग इसको जस्ट दैट इफ यू अरेंज इट, फर्स्ट इज सबसे ज्यादा कौन सा है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी. ओके, उसके बाद सेकंड ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, थर्ड है आपका इंडस्ट्रीज, देन अदर्स आएगा बाकी सब, देन रेसिडेंस, बिल्डिंग्स. सो ये डिक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ कार्बन फुटप्रिंट. All right, so you should remember this. Okay, so इससे 2-3 क्वेश्चन बन सकता है. So this is one of the important part you have to remember. So this is a question from 2012 prelims. Okay, try answering this. थर्मल पावर प्लांट से का एमिशन से कौन सा गैसेस रिलीज हो रहा है? ओके, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, ऑक्साइड्स ऑफ नाइट्रोजन, ऑक्साइड्स ऑफ सल्फर. सो विच ऑफ द अबोव आर द एमिशंस फ्रॉम कोल कंबशन एट थर्मल पावर प्लांट्स? सो द आंसर इज ऑल द थ्री. तीनों का तीनों रिलीज हो रहा है. हम लोग नाइट्रोजन पढ़ा है, सल्फर पढ़ा है, कार्बन पढ़ा है, जिससे पता चलता है कि हम लोग थर्मल पावर प्लांट को हर एक सोर्सेस में ऐड किए. सो इफ यू नो द सोर्सेस, द गैसेस, आपको ऐसा क्वेश्चन आंसर कर सकते हैं. दिस इज यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स क्वेश्चन, ऐसा ही पूछते. ओके, देन कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. ओके, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, मोर डेंजरस देन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. ओके, सो व्हाट इज कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड? कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड जो गैस है, इट इज अ कलरलेस, ओडरलेस, टेस्टलेस, वेरी हाईली टॉक्सिक, स्लाइटली डेंस देन एयर एंड वेरी शॉर्ट लिव. ज्यादा देर नहीं रहेगा एटमॉस्फेयर में, जल्दी से खत्म हो जाएगा, बट स्टिल अ वेरी टॉक्सिक एंड वेरी डेंजरस गैस. क्या सोर्सेस है इसका? इनकम्प्लीट कंबशन ऑफ फॉसिल फ्यूल्स लाइक कोल इन डिफेक्टिव फर्नेस. पूरा का पूरा बर्न हो गया तो या सो वो प्रोड्यूस ऐश करेगा, एशेस, ओके, और इट विल प्रोड्यूस कोल और इट विल प्रोड्यूस स्मोक. बट इनकम्प्लीट कंबशन है, जो बहुत सारे फर्नेसेस है जिसमें प्रॉपरली ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिलता रहेगा, प्रॉपरली एयर नहीं मिलता रहेगा, कॉम्बिनेशन ठीक से नहीं रहेगा, उसमें से कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस होता है. नॉट जस्ट फर्नेसेस, इवन द व्हीकल्स विच आर डिफेक्टिव इंजिन्स, जिसमें फ्यूल और एयर का कॉम्बिनेशन भी ठीक नहीं रहेगा ना, वो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड के बदले में कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड ये करेगा. व्हेनेवर द फ्यूल इज बर्न्ड इन अ डिफेक्टिव मैनर, जिससे कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस होता है. Vehicle and automobile exhaust. Okay, then hemoglobin broke down in higher animals. So hemoglobin जो है, it is present in the blood, mainly red blood cells, RBCs. RBCs का जो red color है, that is because of hemoglobin. RBC से दो क्वेश्चन प्रीलिम्स आया था, which you will be studying in biology, कि which is called as the graveyard of RBCs. The answer is spleen. बॉडी में एक पार्ट होता है स्टोमक के ऊपर, इज कॉल्ड एज स्प्लीन. सब आरबीसीज अपना लाइफ स्पैन कंप्लीट होने के बाद जाके स्प्लीन में मर जाते हैं. सो स्प्लीन इज कॉल्ड एज द ग्रेवयार्ड ऑफ आरबीसीज. दूसरा क्वेश्चन सो आरबीसी से पूछा गया था कि आरबीसी का शेप क्या है? इज इट कॉन्वेक्स, कॉन्केव, बाइकॉन्केव, बाइकॉन्वेक्स? ठीक है, सो बाइकॉन्केव है इसका शेप. ये भी क्वेश्चन था. ओके, सो तीसरा एक क्वेश्चन था आरबीसी से कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज द ओनली यूकैरियोटिक सेल विच डज नॉट हैव द न्यूक्लियस. हर एक जो देखो प्रोकैरियोट और यूकैरियोट में डिफरेंस ये है कि प्रोकैरियोट्स में सेल नहीं रहता, यूकैरियोट्स में सेल रहता है. और यूकैरियोटिक, हर एक यूकैरियोटिक सेल में न्यूक्लियस होता है. ओके, द ओनली यूकैरियोटिक सेल जिसके अंदर न्यूक्लियस नहीं होता है, दैट इज द रेड ब्लड सेल्स ऑफ मैमल्स, mammalian red blood cells. It is the only one which lacks the nucleus. It's anucleated. ये 3 क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था जिससे सिर्फ ब्लड से. सो हर एक सब्जेक्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है. आपको हर एक टॉपिक पे, मतलब आप प्रीवियस ईयर का क्वेश्चन पूछोगे ना, आपको पता चलेगा कि क्या क्या हॉट टॉपिक्स. दैट्स व्हाई आई हैव चूजन दोस टॉपिक्स वेरी केयरफुली. ऑलराइट, सो ये जो हीमोग्लोबिन है वो रेड ब्लड सेल्स के अंदर होता है, जिसमें आयरन कंटेंट होता है. व्हेन दे कंबाइन विथ ऑक्सीजन, इसका रिफ्लेक्शन से हमको पूरा रेड कलर दिखाई देता है ब्लड. ये जो हीमोग्लोबिन ब्रेकडाउन होगा तब कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस होगा. ये हीमोग्लोबिन ब्रेकडाउन कब होगा? जब ब्लड जलेगा. ब्लड कब जलेगा? जब when you burn the dead bodies. है ना, like we have a tradition in India that all the dead bodies after death are burnt and not buried. When you burn it, basically you will be burning the blood inside that body. Any animal, blood containing animal, उसको आप बर्न करोगे तो हीमोग्लोबिन ब्रेकडाउन होगा. इसलिए बोलते हैं कि जो स्मोक डेड बॉडी बर्न करने से आ रहा है ना, उसके पास आपको खड़ा नहीं होना चाहिए, बिकॉज यू विल बी डायरेक्टली इनहेलिंग द कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. ओके, so it contains lot of carbon monoxide from the smoke of burning dead bodies. Okay, वो अभी नहीं, हजारों साल से बोलते आ रहे हैं. संस्कृत में भी है बालार्कम, प्रेत धूमस्या बोलते हैं उसको. प्रेत धूमस्या इज लाइक द स्मोक कमिंग आउट ऑफ द डेड बॉडीज. बर्निंग ऑफ क्रॉप और बायोमास रेसिड्यूज. ओके, सो एक और वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सोर्स है ब्रेकिंग डाउन ऑफ फोटोसिंथेटिक पिगमेंट्स इन आल्गे. आल्गे में जो फोटोसिंथेटिक पिगमेंट्स है, प्लांट्स में जो फोटोसिंथेटिक पिगमेंट्स होता है वो क्लोरोफिल है. ओके, सो आल्गे में भी देयर विल बी सर्टेन पिगमेंट्स व्हिच हेल्प्स इन फोटोसिंथेसिस. ब्लू ग्रीन आल्गे में इट इज अगेन क्लोरोफिल, बट देयर आर सर्टेन आल्गेस व्हिच आर नॉन ग्रीन, उसमें कुछ फोटोसिंथेटिक पिगमेंट्स होता है. दोज पिगमेंट्स आर ब्रोकन डाउन because of carbon monoxide. Okay, when they broken down, they release carbon monoxide. So these are the sources of carbon monoxide. इसका effect क्या है? Okay, so the effects of carbon monoxide, first of all, it burns the tip of plant leaves. Plants का जो tip है ये burn होगा. आपको जैसे ही आप जाएंगे, if you look into the plants and see that the tip is burnt, ये सिम्टम है कि एटमॉस्फेयर में कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड ज्यादा है. ओके, सो बर्न्स द टिप ऑफ प्लांट्स, impairs the growth of plants, प्लांट का ग्रोथ इंपेयर करेगा. एक्सेसिव ड्रॉपिंग ऑफ ब्लूम्स एंड स्मॉल फ्रूट्स, छोटे छोटे फ्रूट्स और ब्लॉसम्स जो है, ब्लूम्स जो है, जो प्रोड्यूस होता है प्लांट्स में, इट विल फॉल ऑफ. ओके, बिकॉज ऑफ एक्सपोजर टू कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. पार्शियल और कंप्लीट फॉर्मेशन ऑफ सीडलेस फ्रूट्स. हम लोग कभी कभार जानबूझ के सीडलेस फ्रूट्स प्रोड्यूस करते हैं थ्रू पार्थेनोकार्पी, बट नेचुरली व्हेन दे आर एक्सपोज्ड टू कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड, सीडलेस फ्रूट्स प्रोड्यूस होगा. ओके, सो फ्रूट्स सीडलेस होगा तो रीजनरेशन मुश्किल हो जाएगा. ओके, क्लोरोफिल ब्रेकडाउन होगा. यंग प्लांट्स ऑफ कॉनिफरस प्लांट्स का जो छोटे छोटे पौधे हैं उसको इफेक्ट करेंगे. ओके, सो some of the things, and these are the certain effects of. Okay, what happened? आगे पहुंच गया. Okay. ओके, या सम ऑफ द इफेक्ट्स, ये जो इफेक्ट्स है, और इट फॉर्म्स ओके कार्बोक्सी हीमोग्लोबिन. तो जब आप इनहेल करोगे, व्हेन यू इनहेल द कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड, वो आपका ब्लड के साथ मिक्स हो जाएगा. एटमॉस्फेयर में जो कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड है, इनहेल करेंगे तो ब्लड के साथ मिक्स होके वो हीमोग्लोबिन से फिर से जुड़ जाएगा, बिकॉज दैट कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड इज प्रेजेंट इन द हीमोग्लोबिन. सो इससे क्या होगा, आपको the overall oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, okay, will be reduced. आपका blood oxygen को carry नहीं कर सकते, it will not able to carry the oxygen, and it will result in oxygen deficiency, and इस condition को हम hypoxia बोलते हैं. Ultimately it will cause to the death of organisms. Okay, so it also causes impaired reaction timing, headache, lightheadedness, nausea, vomiting, weakness, clouding of consciousness, coma. आपको बहुत सारा रिएक्शन टाइम कम हो जाएगा. ओके, सो ये मत समझो ये सब दारू पीने का सिम्टम लग रहा है. ओके, सो या फाइन, इट कॉजेस impaired reaction timing, headaches. Okay, so lightheadedness, right, vomiting, nausea. Okay, weakness, okay, clouding of consciousness, conscious nahi rahega, coma sometimes whenever you are exposed. These are certain effects of carbon monoxide. Okay, so that is the thing, and that is the pollutants. So I'll stop it here, and it was what I had to offer for today's class. So I'll continue with the other pollutants tomorrow. So because it was a first class, so I just wanted to give a small introduction and this class. So tomorrow I'll continue, and that's all for today. Thank you.